All right, let's see if we are live. I think it takes a second.
Okay.
All right, awesome, we're live.
Cool.
So we can just wait a few minutes for people to roll in. Set this up. Awesome.
I promise I'm looking
Yeah, I
at the
know.
deck.
Why don't we can start off with side to side if that works better. Hello, MW Brooks.
Oh, it's Michael. Michael's on the tools team.
Cool. Let me pull up this. Just make sure we're working. Let me tag people in teams as well. Awesome. We'll get started when we get a few more people in.
How have classes been going?
Okay. It's been busy
Yeah.
last 2 weeks. How about work in general?
In general, it's been. I think it's an interesting time for. I'd imagine for you guys too, for students, for everyone. Like just with the stuff that's happened this month and kind of juggling like all this stuff happening in the country with trying to focus on like something that might
Yeah.
seem trivial, but it's been good.
Yeah. I've been online school still, so I haven't been getting out much, which is not the best, but what can you do about it?
Yeah. How has that transition been?
Oh, it's much better now, but at the beginning of the year it was my classes would be like my teachers wouldn't know how to open a meeting or anything, so
Yeah.
learning curve.
Hopefully you guys were patient.
Yeah. I'm gonna tag one more time and then we can get started. Okay, I think we're about good to go. So, all right. So, hi everyone. My name's Bo. I'm one of the student mentors for the Slack Big Camp. If you want to introduce yourself, Alyssa.
Yeah. My name's Alissa. I'm an open source engineer on the tools team at Slack.
Yeah. So this is going to be the week 1 live stream for the Slack Big Camp, like I said. And we're really just going to be focusing on really introductory concepts and skills, how to actually create your first Slack app. We'll do that later. And along the way, you guys can ask any questions you want, and Alyssa will answer them. So
I will try my best to answer them.
yeah, let me set up. Can you see chat on the right side?
I can see private chat.
Okay. So is there like, do you
Oh,
see
I can see. Yep.
comments? Okay,
Yep.
cool. So if
I
people
see Michael's
chat, it'll be
comment.
there.
Cool.
All right. So let's get started. So like I said, I'm Bo, student mentor, and then Alissa at Slack, like you said before.
I can explain a little bit of like, I know the tools team, that description's completely ambiguous to most people. Um, the tools team at Slack is a team that is dedicated to creating and maintaining the SDKs and frameworks that are used by developers in order to create Slack apps, as we'll see today. So Bolt is our family of frameworks that we encourage all developers to use when building Slack apps. And we're going to be learning a little bit about that in a short bit. But that is what our job is to do.
Let me do that. Yeah. So let me. All right. So first question, I'm gonna let Alissa take this. So what is a Slack app? So we know Slack is, the #1 messaging um, platform in the industry, at least I think. But what is a Slack app?
Yes, great question. So if anybody is if you've been in the Slack client or like used Slack before, you'll oftentimes have experienced some sort of interaction with a Slack app. And basically, if you've ever used popular ones like Poly, I know Zoom is a big one.
Mhm.
There's GitHub integrations. Are there any that are coming up to your mind that you've seen a lot or that you know that students have seen a lot?
I would say probably the most popular ones are like reminders and events, like I guess through
Mhm.
like Google's or
Mhm.
yeah, ones like that. But yeah, they're super
Yeah.
useful. Yeah.
Yeah, so Slack apps, those are some examples of them. But what a Slack app is basically is in a way that you can extend functionality within the workspace that you happen to be in. So you can imagine as a developer at a company, perhaps you make a specific Slack app that will automate some sort of process for your team, whether that be maybe welcoming a new team member, or when the new team member joins the channel, it flags or triggers a bunch of different events to occur as a result of that. And so Slack apps as a whole, they're a little bit hard to pin down to like one specific thing because it really is up to the developer. It's pretty limitless. You can make Slack apps that are simple, or you can make them incredibly complex to handle a lot of processes. But in a nutshell, a Slack app is a piece of functionality that users can interact with within Slack to make their jobs or their processes a lot easier.
And I think that kind of leads us into the next slide of, what a Slack bot is compared to a Slack app, and how they work with each other.
Yeah. So if we think like a couple, oh man, more than a couple years ago at this point, when chatbots were a really big thing, right? They're
Hmm.
all the rage. So you can imagine what a chatbot is. It's like an artificial or like an AI that you would interact with, some sort of automated person or user that mimics an actual person, but is just a bot. And those bots can also have a conversational quality to them a little bit. So you think of a Slack bot, you're talking to a bot. You can get things done, but it's more of an interaction, a back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, a Slack app can have a bot as a portion to it. So you can have a Slack app that does a bunch of things for you. It can send off an approval to a GitHub repository by a click of a button, or it can open a modal for your user. As I know that one of the weeks that we're going to do upcoming, you can have the user
Yeah.
input into some fields and then use that to like create a poll or something within the chat. Um, so you can have all sorts of functionality to it, in addition to having maybe an interactive kind of representative that acts as a bot to speak with the user back and forth. So Slack app is like a grander thing than just limited to a bot, although you can have a bot within your Slack app.
Okay. So just to be clear, you can have a
Mhm.
Slack app that has a Slack bot.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, yeah, yeah. So a Slack
yeah,
bot is a
exactly.
Slack app in a way. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the Slack bot can be a part of your Slack app, but it's not necessarily a requirement. Maybe you have a
Yeah.
full app that doesn't have some way for the user to message and go back and forth with that bot.
So if
Mhm.
we, I guess in the tutorial, which we'll do in, 10,
Mhm.
15 minutes, um, if we create a Slack app that just simply responds to a user, would we consider that a bot or?
It depends on how we go about it, and we can kind of riff off of it when we get there, when we
Yeah.
get into the listeners and such. We can set up the Slack app to respond to app mention specifically, so that if somebody mentioned the app's name in the course of their message or something, we can make it so that the app would respond, and therefore you would kind of get a bot feel to it.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So why don't we, I think we've touched on the Bolt framework a bit, but we could maybe talk about why like we prefer to use the Bolt framework compared to like, I know Slack has some other ones and there's some third-party ones, right?
So all of our available tooling is actually available at slack.dev. There you'll find all of the tools that you can use to build on the Slack platform. What we recommend all developers use is, as you said, the Bolt framework. And the reason for that is that Bolt is, being a framework, abstracts away a lot of information or a lot of details that most developers just don't necessarily uh, need to be. Sorry, I'm reading the question now.
Yeah, I saw
But
that
need
too.
to be. um, I'll finish this up and then we can answer
Yeah.
that question because it's a good one. Um, the Bolt abstracts away and basically makes the code much more simpler and more readable, as we'll see with the listener format that it offers, compared to the lower level SDKs, which are lower level SDKs might be a choice for somebody if they need specific fine grained control over certain things. But for most developers, Bolt is going to be the best, absolute best choice for building out a Slack app, and it'll make it a lot faster and a lot more efficient in getting up and running. So I
Yeah.
saw the question, is a Slack bot like something automated or react to some external event in the Slack app? Not so. I kind of want to punt on this a little bit so that we can show and demonstrate this more before, because I think it's a little bit amorphous and abstract, and I'm trying to explain this difference. Your Slack app can do a whole slew of things. It's not just limited to responding to messages. It's not just, it can be something as expansive as we said of opening a modal, depending on the event that happens within Slack, or if we see the Slack client, there's an ability to even create a home tab under the Slack bot's name. I don't know if we're going to screen share the actual Slack client at any point, but that's a good thing to
Oh,
demonstrate to
yeah,
prove
we definitely
the
will.
point.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. But yes, you can also react to external events as well. I know in week 4, going over the GitHub webhooks, a Slack app can listen for external events like webhooks that are coming in from the service like GitHub, and then your Slack app can listening for that event and intercept it and respond to it and do some sort of thing within Slack, maybe send a notification or give information like that.
And I definitely think we'll once we actually like follow creating your first Slack app, we can really like I guess talk about that a bit more. And
Yeah,
define some, yeah. We got another
yeah,
question in chat that says, "What
yeah.
is an SDK?"
Great question. So an SDK, actually, it stands for the Software Development Kit. But what it actually is especially when I used to teach, I used to like explain it like this. When you have large APIs, so like you think of like large companies like Twitter or Facebook or the Slack, for example, that have these massive APIs with pretty complex ways to communicate with it. Maybe the query strings are super complex, or you're sending information in a very specific way, and it's not language specific. So it's like the information that you're sending over is very particular. An SDK is kind of think of it as like an interface layer. So if you think of a kind of like a control box, if you had like a big machine and you have a control box, The SDK is a nice kind of interface over all the controls and all of the super complicated bits that are beneath the surface that allow you to interact with the end API in a much simpler way. So for example, with Slack's API, language agnostic, if you were doing it by hand, sending HTTP requests, it doesn't matter if you're sending those requests from a program like Python, Java, JavaScript, anything like that. SDKs are written in certain languages. So if you as a developer happen to specialize in JavaScript or you happen to specialize in Python, oftentimes you want to be able to continue to use your language in order to communicate with these APIs. And so an SDK allows you to basically download this tool that's written in the language of your choice to use Python to interact with that API instead of just handling it through payloads and just bare HTTP requests.
So for example, in BigCamp, really we're using Node.js. We're going to be using JavaScript. So is there actually like a JavaScript SDK that we're going to be installing?
So there's a Node SDK that's available, but that's again one of the lower level SDKs that we don't recommend developers use unless they have a very specific reason to. What we recommend is the Bolt framework, and the Bolt framework is there's a little bit of an abstraction, more of an abstraction there, which differentiates between low-level SDK. But you could think of this Bolt as a similar kind of concept. It's a very abstracted interface that makes your life easier as a developer in order to create Slack apps and to communicate with the Slack API.
Awesome. I think that sums that question up.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any last questions? It can be anything about, the process of making, or I guess we're gonna explain that soon. Any really like finalizing questions? Because we're gonna get into actually creating a Slack app. So you guys will be able to see the whole process. We're gonna be setting up a workspace, installing the bot, things like that.
Mm-hmm. You're so welcome.
That was a good question.
That was a great question. I hope it actually that was helpful. I know it was getting a little bit complicated in the weeds there.
Okay, I think we are good to move on. So, creating a Slack app. So I think we've talked a bit about Node.js. Do we want to, do you want to go through it, Alissa? And then we can, thanks for the answer. I could see some integration. We did a pull request. Oh yeah. So I think Alissa mentioned it in week 4. We're actually going to be working with the GitHub API. So you'll see some more of that. Whoa, a lot of questions. Okay, so
It's good.
are there specific use cases to build some Slack apps?
I would say that I would fall into what they say after that, or is it only creativity and imagination? I mean, there's tons of Slack apps. A lot of time, actually, okay. I wanted to talk actually a little bit about this. So if you think about who builds Slack apps, right? You can think that there are actually companies that are built solely off of a Slack app. Somebody had an idea. So this is falling into this creativity and imagination. Somebody created Poly. And if you haven't used or seen Poly in a Slack workspace, it's essentially a polling tool. Like you create polls for the people that are in your channel to answer to reach some sort of end. But this is a company, like they employ tons of people. And so somebody had this idea for a Slack app that ended up becoming an actual, like it pays people salaries. So that's one case where somebody will build a Slack app and it becomes a business. The second case is you have bigger entities, so like Zoom, right, or GitHub, or I'm blanking, like all the Google utilities, right? And they'll create Slack apps specifically for their products. So like Zoom, for example, will create the Zoom app to allow people that use Slack to just do a / command, so / Zoom, and then boom, you have a Zoom meeting that's just created that you can jump into with you and whoever you're speaking to. So you have companies that create Slack apps in order to help users integrate their tools and to use their services more. And then the third category is you have developers just like yourselves. Maybe you work at a large company, maybe you work at a small company, maybe you're still obviously still a student, and you build Slack apps either for fun or to suit your own purposes. So developers at startups might have a very unique process within their company, and then they'll build a Slack app in order to make that process easier, to automate it, to help out their teammates and to help make their lives more productive.
Awesome. Some viewers put some very good
Yes,
examples in there.
Anchor,
Oh yeah.
I would voice that as well. All you can see all of, as he says, all the, that's a great link to go to, slack.com / apps. You can kind of get everything that you need. Thanks, Anchor.
Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to stop sharing and then I'll share my full screen. Do you have the, let me do this. Let me share this one. So, all right. So, if you guys aren't familiar with this link, I'll put it in chat. But basically, if you want to get, a basic introduction into how to use Bolt, and actually create your first Slack app, this is like the best reference for it. Let me put it in
Mhm.
chat. So today, basically, I'm gonna go through it, and any questions or things I'm gonna ask Alyssa for. So let's do this. So getting started with Bolt. First thing first, you start developing Bolt. We want to create a Slack app. So we need to actually create a Slack app, which sends us to the Slack API. So I'm guessing this is
Okay,
just,
there's one thing I want to mention here that's
yeah,
super important for everybody. Okay, so when you get to this screen, so you can see the URL up right at the top, api.slack.com / apps. When you create your new app, you're going to be asked for these two pieces of information, your app name and then development workspace. The name that you choose for this, don't worry about this. Like, you can change this later. You have the freedom to do so. So what are you going to name your app, Bo?
difficult. Let's see. So we're making. I'm pretty sure it's just a simple "Hello World," right?
It's
Or
just a message. Yeah,
message.
we can
So
listen to
we'll just
whatever
call it
first.
super cool message app.
Cool. All right. So for the workspace that you choose for this, you're going to want to make sure that you're using a workspace where you don't need any permissions to install your app. So if you happen to be in an existing workspace, you use Slack already, or you're in a company that has a workspace that you're in, unless you're an administrator, you probably, or unless they have certain permissions, you probably don't have the ability to just install an app whenever you want. So we recommend that developers create a brand new workspace to work in, which Bo has already done. And so that's what you would do here. If you don't have that, you just go ahead and create that really quick and then select that.
Should I here? I'm gonna share my actual Slack just to
Mhm.
show how I actually. So okay, I guess it's not here. But anyways, so on my screen, I can't. It's not letting me share a separate application. But basically, I went into the Slap desktop app. There's a plus on the left side that says Add Workspaces. Then you click Create a new workspace, call it what you want, and log in, and you should be at this screen.
I think they can also do it from here.
Yeah, they
If
can.
they
I think. Yeah.
selected that sign into
Oh yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
workspace,
Here, here, here. Yeah.
yeah, I think they get the creation one after that point.
We can look real quick. Yeah, yeah. So you create your own.
Mhm.
Awesome. So let us create an app. Shoot, what was it? Super cool
Super cool message
message app.
app. I
Yeah,
think so.
that one. Okay, and then we have this one, and we're gonna click create app. So now we're on this page. Let's see what it says to
Okay.
do.
Hop back for a
Yeah.
second. Um, so once you create your Slack app, this is you're going to spend a lot of time in here, at least in the beginning. So if you scroll down a little bit, we're in the basic information section. Um, Go down a little bit further, and you're going to see this right here. This is your app credentials. Remember where this is. We're going to come back for this shortly when we actually dive into the code a little bit, but just take special note that you can see that we have a signing secret right there. And that's going to be one of the things that we're going to pull.
Awesome. So, what should we do next after
Let's
we're
head, yeah, let's head back to the tutorial and see. I think that's just going to
so
tell you same
yeah,
stuff.
signing secret.
Mhm.
And then so it talks about our tokens and actually installing the app to our workspace, I presume. So Slack apps use OAuth. When the app is installed, you receive tokens. So you were talking about these tokens, right?
I wouldn't worry about I don't want to touch on OAuth
Okay,
today.
okay.
OAuth becomes really relevant when and if you ever want to install your app that you create into other people's workspaces.
Mm-hmm.
But for our purposes today, just this being an intro, we don't need to worry about that. But information is there if you get way advanced beyond this and you're curious about OAuth, we actually have a whole section on the left-hand side that talks all about it.
Okay, so we'll skip the OAuth part and we'll set up the local project, I presume.
Yep, there's one thing. Yeah, let's do that. We're going to have to come
Yeah,
back to the token stuff, but we can do that
yeah,
after we set up the project.
awesome. So I'm gonna screen share my whole screen. Uh, Let me try and not close this. All right, so um, on the homework, guys, on the GitHub Learning Lab, there'll be something about installing a text editor. If you haven't coded yet or haven't really used a text editor before, um, this one's a really good one called Visual Studio Code. Um, I don't know. Would you recommend this one too, Alyssa?
By far. VS Code is where
By
it's
far,
at.
yeah.
Yep.
So let me call this super cool messaging. Or actually, I believe we're setting it up in console, right? Yes. Okay, so we're gonna open a new terminal. Let me put
There's
these
one
side and side.
we have
Yeah.
one question. Um, yeah, I heard you may have to create a Slack account. So it's been a while for me. I've used Slack for many, many years. I think you do not need to pay. Unless you're on a like a higher, you do not need to be on any sort of paid plan. You can absolutely sign up and create your own workspace, 100% free. So you do not need to worry about that.
Yeah, everything we're doing right now, you could follow along, I put this link in the tutorial or in the Twitch stream. You can just
Mhm.
start off doing it and everything. Yeah. So it tells me here we need to create a new project. So um basically, I guess this is getting into a lot of things, but mkdir is actually to make a new directory or a new folder. So what do we call it? Super cool messaging. Super
Yeah.
cool messaging app. All right, we'll do that. Then we'll cd into super. Oh, I shouldn't have made this name so long. There. So now we're cd into it, and then we're gonna use npm init. So do you want to talk about that, or should I?
I don't know how much, I mean, I don't know how much you want to go into NPM.
So they do learn a bit more about Node later on. So I guess I'll say a few things just to touch on it. So basically, we're using Node.js, which is based off JavaScript. I forget it's a framework, or I forget the specific word for it. But basically, it allows you to run code on a server rather than in your browser, which JavaScript usually is. And this command, we're just setting up a new folder for Node Packet Manager because we're going to be using the Bolt framework.
So one thing I would add, one helpful way to think about NPM as you get to use it as you're using Node more is NPM. When you install, it's basically NPM Node Package Manager. When you install libraries or modules that other people have created. So tools, right? Like Bolt is a framework that we're going to be reaching up into NPM, into the repository out there, and pulling down these packages for our use within our projects. So that's the role that NPM is going to be playing for us. When we do NPM init, we're also creating, and what you'll see when Bo finishes this is a new file will be created called package.json. And that package.json can do a lot of things for you, but one of the main things that it does is it keeps a record of the packages that you've pulled down and that your project that you're in is using. So that if somebody else later wants to use your same project, they obviously need to know what tools that you've used. And this is the file that allows them to quickly find those tools and then go up there and then pull them back down and download them locally so that they can run your project as well.
Yeah, that's super important to that. So, yeah. So you'll be prompted with a series of questions to describe your project. I don't think these are too important unless you want to set it up with, keywords, author, licensing. Uh, Everything looks good. Awesome. So I believe we have things set up.
You got a request because can you make your font a little bit bigger in
Oh,
your
yeah, yeah,
editor?
yeah. My bad. That might be a bit too big. Is that okay? I can't see chat while streaming. Oh, and I don't want to do that. I'm sorry, please. Okay. Please let me know if this is too big or too small. Sorry, I'm really used to small font and things, so
Said much better. Okay.
awesome. So, cool. We're in here. So, what's our next step? Um, in the directory. So I'm guessing we need to actually find the directory where it's made, which is mm, do you know where it
Let me
makes it
just
in?
I mean, I'm
Is that
assuming,
it?
I assumed that this was you would open the directory in your IDE.
I think it's in here. One sec. Here it is. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I was blanking.
Okay.
Look at this. Users. This is my name. And then we have a new file here. Open this folder. Okay,
Cool.
so now we have our package.json file, which you talked about earlier, and it wants us to look for signing codes, right?
Well, we should probably, I'm not where you are, has it asked us to
Yeah.
install? It has not asked us to install yet. Gosh, I
It
hope it
says
doesn't look like,
before we
okay,
install Bolt. Yeah.
let's go by the rules. Okay.
Okay. Um, so it says these should be stored in environment variables. But for the first week, just because we want to introduce .env a bit later on, we're gonna actually be hard coding these into our bot. So if the code down here, I believe we do it here.
So one
So
thing to note that
yeah,
I never, especially those new to programming, it's okay for like a case like this, right? That you're hard coding your environment variables into your code. Never, ever, ever, ever hard code your environment variables into your code and push them up to GitHub ever. Even if you think that your repository is private, even if you're absolutely certain that that will always be the case, just do not get into the habit of hard coding your credentials of any kind. Just blanket policy. Just don't do it. For
yeah, I
this case, for
completely agree with
demonstration, it's totally fine.
yeah. I've done that before and it's not fun. You have to like get new code, regenerate everything,
Mhm.
resync your Slack bot. Yeah, no. So let's continue. So do we want to install you? Do you want to just follow it, Alyssa, and then um we can install Bolt afterwards?
Um, well, it's going to ask us. So I guess let's go ahead and pop down right there. Let's start
Hmm. Yeah.
installing and then we'll go through the code and then we can just hard code the variables there.
Awesome. So it tells us to install at slack/bolt. Once again, we're going to be using Node Packet Manager. So if we create a new terminal, it tells us to do npm install at slack/bolt. And this is the, I guess, the framework or SDK you're talking about, right?
Hmm. Yep. This is
So,
the bolt package. Yep.
hmm, so we'll let it install. Um, and it's just pulling all, the data, right, from the cloud.
Hmm.
Cool. There we go. So now we have a new folder called node modules. We're not going to mess with that. And we have another JSON. Um, this is just kind of a log, right, of, all the tools we installed.
It's think of this as like if you installed Bolt.
Mm,
This is getting the technical weeds, but I think this is interesting. If you install Bolt in your package manager, or in your package.json, what you're finding in packagelock.json is the dependency tree of Bolt and every other
mm.
every other package that you happen to download. So it's like, what other NPM packages and libraries is Bolt dependent on? So you'll find all of that
Okay, yeah.
information there. Mhm.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So create a new file called app.js. We're going to click here, create app.js, um, and add the following code. So we're going to copy and paste this. And I think it would be good to just go over and say what each thing does, maybe.
Yeah, can you pull yep, exactly. And maybe pull
Yeah,
that down and
I'll make this a bit bigger.
yeah,
There we go.
probably that's
Okay,
good.
so
Okay, cool. So at the very, very top, so we're working in Node. So you can see that you're requiring, right? And so
mm,
what we're basically doing with this require statement is looking in that Node modules folder that Bo mentioned and said that we're not going to get too deep into. But we're reaching into that Node modules folder and looking for a dependency with the same name. So we're looking for @slack/bolt. We're looking for the bolt package. Once we brought that in to what we're actually doing in the earlier part of that line on line 1 is we're reaching into that library and pulling out an app class. So you see we're using a little bit of ES6 destructuring on line 1 right there. So again, line 1 right there.
mhm.
Imagine this as reaching into the Slack Bolt library the framework that we just downloaded, and we're pulling out the app class and only the app class from that. We only want that one thing for right now.
Okay, so basically we're only using the app class right now, and
Mhm.
we're creating a new app, right?
Yep.
So
So do you wanna go? I
sure.
can.
Um, so the app, obviously, we have our token and our signing secret, which we can find in our account. Um, Here we have the line process.env and then the actual Slack underscore bot underscore token. So if we were using .env, we would have another file here actually called .env. And these are our environmental variables, just so we don't, if let's say we wanted to share, let's say we wanted to share this code on GitHub, like Alyssa talked about, we could actually just copy and paste this and upload it without having to worry about posting our authentication codes online, because that's really bad. But anyways, why don't we go find these? So here it says we need our bot token and signing secret.
So
So
we
the
know that we already
article,
got the
yeah,
sign-in secret.
yeah, we found that earlier. So scroll down here, signing secret. I'm
Yeah.
gonna press show.
This is a
I'm gonna
toy
press
app, so
this.
it's fine.
Yeah. Usually don't be sending this. Don't be showing it around. But for now, it's okay. I have to put it in quotations, I believe, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So signing secret, and then it says we need a bot token. So where do we actually find this bot token?
So, great question. So, you are not given a bot token until you install your app into the workspace that you chose. Okay. So, if we actually go up here, oh, perfect. That's another way to get
Install
there.
your
Let's
app.
go ahead and there. It's
Uh,
going to give us some information, right? It's telling us you
yeah.
can't do that. And the reason being is that we really need to add at least one permission scope in order to do so. So if you go ahead and click that link to permission scope, it's going to take us to the OAuth and permissions page. If we scroll down to scopes right here. So do you want to talk a little bit about scopes, or do you want?
Sure. From my knowledge, scopes are kind of, um, they're instead of giving the spot access to everything in your Slack workspace, so they can, you know, read messages, send messages, delete messages. You can actually, excuse me, you can actually give your bot specific ones. So, I would you say that's a good way of explaining it?
And I
Um,
think I think that's a great way of explaining it. And I think one way to think about why this is important, because maybe some people are thinking, but like I'm developing, like I want my app to be able to do everything. I don't want to have
mm,
to constantly add new scopes. If you think about it, if you were to be a user who wanted to download somebody else's app, you wouldn't necessarily feel great just saying, hey, this app that I'm downloading and bringing into my
yeah,
workspace can literally do anything. Like I'm giving it permission to do anything. So you can imagine from the user standpoint, this gives a bit more feel of security. Of what am I
oh,
allowing
definitely.
this application that I'm bringing into my workspace. So that's why bot token scopes super helpful, and you can make your app very specific. Like you don't need all the permissions, you don't need to be getting all of that. So what I would say here, because we know that we need to have a some sort of scope in order to install to get our bot token,
Mhm.
maybe if we think about what we want our app to do, we can decide what we would like.
So I guess the basics, we want it to be able to read messages, read the user's messages, and then maybe write a message back,
Yeah,
something
I
like
love
that.
that.
So we
hmm
can look, read write, I believe it's called, or what's it called?
I
Right.
think one of them is channel
Uh,
history.
there we go. View messages and other content, and then
Perfect.
uh,
And then you wanted to write, correct?
we need it to write. Yeah.
There we go. Oh,
Yeah. Right.
second one. Chat
Yeah.
right.
I believe,
Perfect.
does this one tell us what we have to add? I'm not sure if it does.
We can always come back. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
this is enough for what we're going to be doing, but we can always come back and add more.
So channel history and chat right. Awesome.
Cool.
So cool. Look at that. Now we can actually install to our workspace because we have, so it is requesting permission.
This is that permission page, right?
I
If you were
see.
installing somebody else's app, you'd be
Yeah.
like, if it had everything. But this is pretty
Mm,
straightforward what it's asking for, but just a verification.
yeah. So let's do allow. Um.
Cool.
Oh, look right there. There's our bot user access token. So if I go into the workspace, oh look at that. There's
There it
the
is.
there's the super cool message app. Um, awesome. So that's set up.
I
So
think
yeah,
somebody's having trouble with NPM.
npm. Okay. I don't want to pull up chat because then it's gonna
Yeah.
show everything. So maybe um, you can read their question.
If you have a question about NPM specifically, you can feel free to put it in the channel and we can try to answer
Yeah.
it.
Oh, if it's not working, you have to download Node.js. Um, so if you go to Node.js download, you have to actually download it. I don't think you have to add it to Windows Path or Mac Path, but just make sure you have it downloaded, and it should be all set up with Visual Studio Code. Um, yeah. So if npm's not working, that's why. I should have included that earlier. Um, can you let me know if that answers your question, or Alyssa, if they respond saying something?
They've said that they have Node, but the error
Okay.
message is saying it's likely an error with npm itself. So without more information, I'm not sure how to debug that right now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
If you actually want to message me on Discord, I can help you after the stream. I'll put it in chat or okay, I'll let me remember. I'll put it in chat afterwards. I promise. I promise I'll remember. But let's continue. So we have our bot user token. So I'm gonna copy this and put it into our token. Awesome. So now theoretically our app is connected.
Yes. Well, you'd be able to create an instance of your app. So that's what we're
Yeah.
doing, but we still need to start our server.
Yeah. So um so your token and signing secrets are enough to create your first Bolt.js app. Save your app.js and then run this command in the following or command line run the following. So let's go to terminal and I believe it asks us to run node app.js.
Mhm.
So this is making our server specifically for this file, I'm guessing, our app.js file.
Yep, it's Node will run this file, and in our file we have the code to start our Bolt application, and that's what's going to run.
Awesome.
There we
So
go.
look at that. Console logged, Bolt app is running. So everything is connected and it is working like it should, which doesn't happen very rare, which happens very rarely.
Especially when live coding. So
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
So setting up events. Are we covering this?
Ba, 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 ba.
This is with Angrok and using. Um,
We want to
Here we go.
do. Let's do. Yeah, We're going
Yeah.
to do the message today.
All right. Let's do that. So your app is now ready for some logic. Let's start by using the message method to attach a listener for messages. So I think once I get the code in, we should go over what everything does.
Okay. While you're pasting the code, I do want to kind of. You can go ahead and paste it. I want to talk about this idea of listeners because I think it's what makes Bolt so great. Um, I mean, 80 is our its jobs is our job as developers, whether we like to admit it or not. Most of the time, 80% of our job is reading code, especially when you get a job in it, and really understanding. And so, readability with a code base is so crucial. It's so important because the harder code is to understand and harder to read, the longer it's going to take you in order to be productive. So Bolt is built off this idea of listeners. As you can see right here on line 10, these listeners have names that indicate what we're listening for. So in this case, we have app.message, and it's this idea that we're listening for the message event. We're listening for the messages that are occurring within Slack itself. And there's a bunch of other listeners that if you continue to, obviously with the live streams, that'll be covered in the weeks to come. But this is an important one.
Mm. So really, this event listener, it's looking for a message, specifically the string hello. And then it's using say, which we can get more into, to respond. Um, So it's responding with the user's name, right? Their oh, what's that name? Their at or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, like their handle. Yeah.
Yeah, their handle. That's a good word. Um, so theoretically, this should work if I just run it, right? Because we have
Oh,
our.
we're gonna run into a bug, but I'm
Oh,
going
are
to.
we? Okay,
Yeah,
let's go to terminal.
but it has. I don't think it has. It won't have anything to do with your code.
Okay.
Do you want to run into it and see if we
Yeah.
can debug
Let's see
it,
what
or
happens.
because I feel like it's a very common issue that people creating their first Slack apps will run into.
So I got the error. Uh, wow.
Ooh.
So, hmm. In the
Can
future,
you
promise rejections. Yeah, I'm not sure
can you
why it's
scroll up? You're getting error already in use. Do you have another server
already
running
in
at
use.
3000?
Oh, yeah, I do.
There you go.
Was that the problem, or is there another one?
Yes, that was the problem.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
cool. It's running. So presumably we go here, and we go into general, and I can type hello. The bot should work.
So why doesn't it work? So like think about this as
Let's look.
like it has nothing to do with your code.
Nothing to do with my code.
Mm-mm.
Nothing to do with my code. The code is
Nothing
working
to do. I
from the bot.
promise. I promise. Your code is fine.
It's too late to be debugging. Hmm.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Mhm.
So when you're thinking about a Slack app, think about your Slack app as you're developing it as an entity, right? In order for your app to hear an event that occurs, it needs to be present for it. So you need to invite your app to this
Oh,
channel.
I see. So I can.
You can actually easily do that by just adding your bot or your sorry, adding your app, even I say it occasionally, in the message box down there, down in the
Here,
chat channel.
here,
Nope,
add app.
down. Nope. Mm-mm.
Ah,
Go
sorry.
back to the channel, to
General.
general. There you go. Right. Yep. Like you were sending a message, but just
Yeah.
at your
At
Slack app.
your
Just
app.
and then enter,
And
and then there you go. You can invite. Nope. You want to
invite.
invite them. There you go.
There we go.
Cool. All
Okay.
right.
So now, now it's actually in here, right?
Your app is here. Go ahead and now try
Awesome.
hello.
Let's see it. Um. So it is in, but it's not responding.
We have one more thing that we need.
Oh, what is it?
go back to the tutorial. This is
Yeah.
the last part. This is the last piece of it.
Mm,
So
into
just go up
this
to the setting events.
setting events.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We need to listen for events, right? So that
Uh,
one piece of our app being in the channel is one thing, but
mhm.
we need to enable events within our configuration. So we need to tell Slack what events our app is interested in hearing. Okay?
Okay, so we would do that in here, right?
Exactly. Yep. And so if we go under, oops, go up a little bit to event
Yeah.
subscriptions, that's where we're going to define
Here we go.
which events we want to listen to.
Okay, so enable
Okay.
events.
Yep. Now we need a request URL here
Hmm.
first. This is where this URL needs to be public, and this is where ngrok comes in.
Mhm.
So we need to create our ngrok server.
Don't believe I've set up ngrok before, so is it an
Okay.
npm install?
Um, I I believe I use brew. Um,
Okay. Let me look it up quickly.
if you just go to ngroks, there, I think it's like a 2-line.
Oh, let's make an account. Ngrok npm. Pretty sure we can just install ngrok, right?
I don't. You're not going to want it to be.
Okay.
You're not going to want it relative to this project.
Okay.
So
So
if you just
yeah,
do you have Homebrew installed?
don't believe I do. Should I install Homebrew?
Okay. Um, Let me think if there's another way. And Ankur, if you know off the top of your head if there's another way to get around this.
I feel like I've ran this before without using a request.
You need a publicly accessible
Yeah.
URL in order to
Uh-huh.
receive events. Into the Yeah, there's no Homebrew on Windows. They use something else for Windows that I'm not familiar with.
Great. Okay. So do we want to use glitch? Um, that might be an option.
Yep, we can go the glitch route.
It's the glitch route. So if you guys don't know, glitch is like, um, well, I guess it says it here. Basically, it's kind of like an online IDE where you can host code and everything in the cloud. I'm gonna log in with my mhm, new project. what do I want to do? I want to do a note or
Do we link out to, I know that we mentioned glitch within our tutorial. Is there a helpful link there in that section?
I'm not sure. Here it uses ngrok again.
Right.
Do I want to send the other one maybe? Or I'm not sure.
Um, let's see. Can you click that little arrow that says use the local request URL for development?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, there we go.
I could set up
Can you go ahead
ngrok here.
right there? Yep, go ahead and click that.
So, download and setting up ngrok. So let's download it.
But I think, oh, there we go. Download for Windows.
Let's do this. Hide this. Can you still see my screen? I just clicked something
Yes,
that
we
said
can see it.
hide. Yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't stop screen sharing.
So while you're going through this, what I can say to those that are listening, so what ngrok, because Slack to subscribe to events, because this request URL, yep, Cam, I'm going to get to that exact question. So your Slack app needs a publicly accessible URL to communicate with. So Slack is sending basically events that are happening in Slack to your application. So that URL needs to be publicly accessible so that Slack can communicate with it. What ngrok does is it basically creates a tunnel, a publicly accessible URL that tunnels to your local environment. And why this is so helpful is that otherwise we would need to develop our code and then basically push it up to some hosting service to be able to make that URL accessible for somebody to hit. So ngrok basically allows us to create a public URL while also developing locally without having to actually push it up to production.
Not sure what's happening. I'm trying to
Ankur,
unzip it.
Ankur has said, after you extract the executable from the zip, you'll have to
There it
invoke
is.
it from the command line.
Okay, so
Probably.
after I run this, I see. Type ngrok. All right, let's see what the article says. Yeah.
Always a good idea.
So install it. Extract ngrok to your path. I think I have it set up in path earlier. Time to run ngrok. So, actually, how do I add it to path? Only consists of extracting into the folder and run ngrok. Okay, so should I do port 80? It says here. There
I
we
think
go.
you want it to be the same port as your that your app's running on, and I believe that's 3000 right now.
3000. Great. Okay, so I'm gonna have to run that again. So ngrok.exe http 3000. All right, so that is running there. Says it's
So
online, right? Yeah.
okay, so let's test this. So
Okay.
if you see in that terminal how you have that new URL with a little hash on the bottom, that
See.
HTTPS. So
Maybe
that is
that's
your
what's here.
public, yep, that's your public created URL that's going to tunnel to
Okay.
your app that's running on 3000.
What
So
is it?
copy
All right,
that.
one sec. Today is not ngrok.exe http 3000. There we go. So
Cool.
when I
Copy
copy
that.
this, please don't erase. There we go. All right. Awesome.
Now head back to the app configuration for your Slack app on
Yeah, I'm
api.slack.com.
trying to
Yeah.
get this. Here we go. Request
Huh.
URL.
Yep. So we'll paste that, and then it needs to end with
Mm-hmm.
/Slack/events.
Events. Awesome.
There you
Verified.
go.
Awesome.
So that when you see that verified, that means that Slack is successfully being able to communicate with your app locally. So that's exactly what you want.
So everything's
Um,
connected now.
it's making the connection, but we need to add
Yeah,
the event that we want to listen for.
I
So go
see.
ahead and go down to subscribe to bot event
Hmm.
and then add a bot user event. And what we want to listen for is what?
So we're listening for channel read, I'm guessing, or when someone creates a message.
Yeah, we
Full
want to
text.
listen for when someone creates a message.
Or chat created.
I
What's
think
it?
it's search for message. I know the article.
Uh, Message was posted.
There we go.
Message.channels. Awesome.
Perfect. And
Let
if
me
you
go
give
back
that a
down.
save, oh, don't forget to save your, otherwise it won't take effect.
I see.
And
Save
then, yeah,
changes.
there we go. Cool.
So it says here after there are 4 events related to messages, groups, DMs. Awesome. So we just want public channels.
Yeah.
We have this set up.
Let's
Do
let's
we
test
want to
it.
try it out? So let me.
Let's
Ah,
see if it works now.
please, please work. And app.js. Bolt is running. Hello. There we go. It works.
We made it, right?
I
I
think that
know.
deserves a pat on the back because that. All right. So responds with "Hey there" and then uses my app or my handler, which is
Mhm.
super cool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop screen. Oh, now infinite loop. Let me start screen sharing. The slideshow. Um, let's do this. Do this.
Yeah, Ankur points out the hard part's done.
Yes.
Once you get your app up and going and you get that first success, riffing off of that and the weeks going forward are should be pretty smooth. It's just
Mhm.
adding on to it.
So, Bobo, oh, thank you. I hope that was informational for everyone. Does anyone have any questions? Or, oh, let me put my Discord. I remembered. If you have any questions or anything, add my Discord. It is in chat. Um, Whoever was having the problem with Node, please message me, and I will help you with that. Um, no problem. Thank you to Alyssa.
Thank you. I hope this was useful for those watching.
I guess we'll give it a couple minutes. Um, did you say we had homework every week? So, oh, you got it sorted. Awesome, thank you. So the format is basically we'll have this live stream with a student mentor and a Slack engineer every week for 4 weeks. After the live stream, you'll have a week to, or yeah, you'll have a week to create 3 or 4, or to finish 3 or 4 tasks that are done through a GitHub Learning Lab, which I can send the link to here. And these really aren't. Don't think of them as homework. Think of them more as like, um, well, yeah, they're homework. They're just to better your understanding of the concepts we introduced. So for the homework, you're gonna be introduced, or you're gonna be creating another Slack app using the same concepts we did today. And then you're also gonna be introduced to, I believe, ENV this week, or maybe not. Maybe, yeah. So I think it is this week. But basically, you're just gonna be working on things like that. I'll send the link right here. Okay, so okay, you have that. So if everyone, I sent it through my other account. So if everyone sees this link in chat, this is the GitHub Learning Lab. If you have a GitHub account, just log in with that, and we'll be able to see all your progress and everything. In the actual GitHub repo is where you'll see the format. And if you have any questions about it, please let me know. Um, Basically, go through it, start the learning lab, and read through everything. It'll tell you how to get to the next step, what you're going to be doing to actually create a pull request and move on, things like that. feel like I've been talking for forever.
You made it though.
Yeah, it is working. Um, awesome. Don't want to take up more of Alyssa's time or anyone's time, so I think that is a great place to end. So thank you everyone for coming to the week one live stream. If you want a recording, I'll send it to the Discord. Um, and a huge thanks to Alyssa for being here.
Thank you for letting me be here. It was a pleasure.
All right, bye everyone. Thank you.
See ya.